Emily Warwick had always been told she was lucky. Friends envied her handsome husband, the large Georgian home on the outskirts of Bristol, and the quiet comfort of their life together. On the surface, she wore the smile of a woman who had everything. Yet behind closed doors, the silence between them was louder than any argument. Evenings had become a ritual of absence. Emily set the table for two, polished silver glinting under candlelight, yet only one chair was ever filled. She tried to swallow the ache as she watched wax drip down the candles, while Daniel's messages arrived later and later. He always had a reason. Late meetings, broken trains, endless clients. His voice was polite but distant, like he was already elsewhere. Sometimes when the house creaked at night, Emily whispered their wedding vows to herself, desperate to remember the man who once looked at her with devotion. But the words, once binding, now felt like lies carved into stone. One evening, while tidying the living room, her hand brushed against a photo frame on the mantelpiece. Their wedding day beamed back at her. Daniel's arms locked around her waist, his smile radiant. Yet a small crack ran through the glass, splitting their faces apart. She traced it with her fingertip, shivering. At dinner that night, Daniel finally came home. He kissed her cheek, barely grazing her skin, then sat down without meeting her eyes. Emily forced a smile, but her stomach knotted when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He flipped it face down on the table, lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. For the first time, Emily wondered who he was smiling for. The phone buzzed again. Emily's eyes darted to the sofa where Daniel had carelessly left it. For years, his belongings had been untouchable, a silent boundary she never dared to cross. Tonight, however, temptation burned hotter than fear. The screen lit up, slicing the room with a pale glow. Her breath faltered. "Can't wait to see you tonight." The words blinked in front of her like a blade pressed against her chest. Emily froze, the candlelight flickering across her trembling hands. Her body begged her to look away, but her eyes were shackled to the message. Denial clawed at her mind, whispering excuses, a colleague, a joke, some harmless mistake. Yet the heart emoji pulsed with cruel certainty. She reached for the phone, fingers hovering just above the screen. Her pulse thundered in her ears. If she unlocked it, she would cross into a place she could never return from. The sound of a key turning in the door made her snatch her hand back. Daniel walked in, his coat slung over his arm, tie loose, a practiced smile softening his features. He bent to kiss her cheek as if nothing had ruptured. Emily forced her lips to curve upward, but her throat was tight with unspoken words. She wanted to ask. She wanted to scream, yet his calmness was disarming, suffocating even. He poured himself a glass of wine, humming softly, while she sat rigid, staring at the sofa where his phone still lay, face down. He looked up at her. "Long day, love." Her answer was a whisper. "Yes, very long." The room filled with silence again, but it was no longer the silence of neglect. It was the silence of secrets, and it was beginning to choke her. The next morning, Emily gathered Daniel's laundry into the wicker basket by the bathroom door. She had done it countless times before, her hands moving in practiced silence. Yet when she lifted his shirt, the faint scent hit her, sweet, floral, and undeniably feminine. It was not hers. Her stomach lurched. She pressed the fabric to her nose again, searching for doubt, but the perfume clung stubbornly to the cotton. With it came a faint trace of lipstick, smudged on the collar like a mocking signature. When Daniel came upstairs, she held the shirt up in trembling hands. Who was she? He froze, then laughed too quickly. "Emily, you're imagining things. It's just perfume from the office. You're making it into something it isn't." Her voice cracked. "Don't treat me like I'm blind. I can smell her. I can see this." She jabbed her finger at the collar, the red smear catching the light. Daniel's expression hardened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've been restless lately. You invent shadows where there are none. This paranoia, it isn't healthy." Emily's pulse quickened. His words sliced deeper than anger ever could. He wasn't denying. He was twisting. She felt herself shrinking, folding into the doubt he was planting inside her. "I'm not paranoid," she whispered, though even she could hear the fragility in her tone. He smiled, almost pitying. "Then stop acting like it. Trust me, or we'll have nothing left." The words were a warning, not comfort. Emily clutched the shirt to her chest, her knuckles white, while Daniel walked out as if the matter were settled. Alone in the bathroom, she stared at the lipstick stain under the cold light. The proof was there, yet he had made her doubt her own mind, and that terrified her more than the perfume itself. By the weekend, Emily could no longer contain the storm brewing inside her. The perfume, the lipstick, the hollow reassurances, they spun in her head until she could scarcely hear her own thoughts. She needed someone who would not twist her reality. She called Sophie Langford, her oldest friend. They met in a small cafe tucked into a narrow Bristol lane, the kind of place where shadows clung to every corner, and conversations stayed hidden. Emily wrapped her hands around her cup, though the coffee had already gone cold. "I think he's seeing someone," she whispered, her voice fraying. Sophie leaned forward, her sharp eyes softening. "What makes you say that?" Emily's confession tumbled out. The late nights, the message on his phone, the perfume, the lipstick stain. With each detail, her chest tightened as though speaking it aloud made it more real. Sophie was silent for a long moment. Then she placed her hand gently over Emily's. "If you want the truth, you'll have to be ready for the pain that comes with it." The words lodged deep. Emily nodded, tears threatening but refusing to fall. Pain was already her shadow. What terrified her was not knowing how deep it went. Their cups clinked as Sophie pushed hers back too hard, a spill streaking across the table, dark liquid seeping like an omen. Neither moved to clean it. Emily straightened, resolve flickering behind her weary eyes. "I can't keep pretending. I need to know who she is." Sophie's gaze lingered on her, worried yet unflinching. "Then be careful. The truth can consume." Emily left the cafe with a single thought echoing inside her. She would no longer remain passive. The first step would come sooner than she dared imagine. That night, Emily's resolve sharpened into action. Daniel had said he would be working late again. The same lifeless excuse she had heard too many times. She waited until he left, then pulled on her coat and slipped into the rain-drenched streets, her footsteps quick but silent. She followed at a distance, her breath misting in the cold night air. The city lights blurred in the downpour, yet Daniel's figure cut through the haze with cruel clarity. He moved with purpose, shoulders squared, the confident stride of a man with nothing to fear. Emily's heart drummed as he stopped outside a hotel, its neon sign buzzing faintly, throwing garish color across the wet pavement. She pressed herself into the shadow of a lamppost, rain sliding down her face like tears. Then she saw her. A woman emerged from the hotel entrance, younger, elegant, her dark hair pinned neatly, her lips painted in a shade that burned against the night. She smiled, radiant, and Daniel's entire body softened in response. Emily watched, frozen, as he reached for the woman and pulled her close. Their kiss was slow, deliberate, the kind reserved for a secret too intoxicating to resist. The sight struck Emily like a blade twisting deep inside her chest. Every vow, every memory, every whispered promise shattered in that single embrace. Her body shook. She stumbled back from the lamppost, the rain masking her sob as she turned and fled down the street. Behind her, Daniel remained locked in the arms of the stranger, oblivious to the wife dissolving into darkness only a few steps away. Emily ran until her legs buckled, her mind spinning in chaos. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, and now there was no escape from it. The rain still clung to Emily's coat when she burst into the house. Her chest heaved, her hands trembling, the image of Daniel's lips on another woman seared into her mind. By the time he walked in hours later, she was waiting, seated at the dining table with cold food untouched. "Who is she?" Her voice cut the air, sharp and brittle. Daniel paused, loosening his tie, then gave a slow smile. "What are you talking about?" Emily's fury erupted. "Don't lie to me. I saw you, outside that hotel. With her." For a heartbeat his eyes flickered, but the mask returned quickly. He set his briefcase down, voice maddeningly calm. "Emily, you've lost yourself in paranoia. You've been spending too much time with Sophie, haven't you? She's always filling your head with poison." Her fists slammed the table, rattling the plates. "Don't you dare drag her into this. Know what I saw." He stepped closer, towering over her, his tone gentle but laced with menace. "You've been fragile for months, misinterpreting things, seeing ghosts. If you continue like this, you'll destroy what we have left." Emily's breath caught. The rage that had fueled her began to fracture, replaced by a creeping uncertainty. Was she really twisting reality? His voice dripped with authority, every word calculated to dismantle her certainty. "No," she whispered, clutching her hair, tears breaking free. "I'm not mad." Daniel crouched beside her, placing a hand on her knee, his expression soft, almost tender. "Then prove it, trust me." "Stop letting Sophie's doubts poison us," Emily recoiled, the tenderness more suffocating than his cruelty. When he left the room, she stared at the shattered plate on the floor, the silence pressing in. The battle between them had only just begun. Emily's head remained heavy with Daniel's words long after he left the room. She felt herself unraveling, caught between the truth she had witnessed and the doubt he had planted like a poison. By morning, she could no longer hold it in. She called Sophie, her voice hoarse, and begged her to meet. They sat again in the dim cafe, the same corner where Emily had first whispered her fears. This time she didn't bother with coffee. She simply leaned forward, eyes red and wild. "He says I'm imagining it. That you've poisoned me with doubts. But I saw her, Sophie. I saw them." Sophie listened without flinching, her jaw tightening. After a long pause, she exhaled and spoke quietly. "Emily, I know who she is." The words sliced deeper than any denial Daniel had given. Sophie's eyes dropped to the table. "Her name is Clara. She isn't just some stranger. Years ago, before you married Daniel, she was part of his life. More than that, she was the one who nearly ruined him. I never thought I'd see her again." Emily's stomach turned cold. A name, a history. Suddenly, the betrayal no longer felt like a single wound, but an old infection, festering beneath years of silence. "He told me he had left all of that behind," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Sophie's gaze lifted, steady but sorrowful. "Daniel has always been good at hiding what he doesn't want seen. You must be ready to face just how much you've never known." Emily felt the ground beneath her shift. The man she had shared her life with was now a stranger, and the secrets were older, deeper than she had ever feared. The past had returned, and it was coming for her. The name Clara echoed in Emily's skull long after she left Sophie. It hollowed her, then filled her with something sharper than grief. That night, as Daniel's voice drifted up from the study, Emily sat motionless in the darkened bedroom, her pulse thudding in her throat. She realized she could no longer wait for answers to fall from his lips. She would take them. When Daniel left his phone unattended, Emily slipped a small recorder into the drawer of his desk. Its red light glowed faintly in the shadows, capturing every whisper, every call he thought hidden. Her hands shook as she placed it there, but her resolve did not. Days turned into patterns. She followed him at a distance, noting streets, hotels, hours. In a locked drawer of her vanity, she began keeping a diary, not of feelings, but of evidence. Times, names, fragments of overheard words. The pages filled quickly, her neat handwriting transforming into jagged scrawls. The woman she once was, tender and trusting, felt like a ghost fading behind her. In her place, a new version stirred, cold, methodical, unblinking. Yet with every secret she gathered, the weight grew heavier. She caught herself speaking less, her voice thinning to whispers when she was alone. Her reflection in the mirror unsettled her. One side bathed in lamplight, the other cloaked in shadow, eyes hardened by sleepless nights. One evening, while reviewing her notes, she realized with a shudder that she no longer thought of herself as his wife. She thought of herself as his hunter. The shift was irreversible and it frightened her. But fear was no longer enough to stop her. The truth was close now, and she was willing to bleed to reach it. Emily waited until Daniel left for the gym, his routine as predictable as his lies. She moved through the house with quiet precision, her steps muffled against the carpet, until she reached his office. The door creaked, and for a moment she froze, half expecting him to appear behind her. But the silence reassured her. She searched the desk first, then the filing cabinet, but it was the locked drawer at the bottom that drew her eye. She had stolen the spare key weeks ago, hidden beneath the lining of her coat pocket. With shaking hands, she turned the lock. Inside lay a neat stack of envelopes tied with a red ribbon. Emily lifted them out, her breath shallow. The handwriting on the front of the first envelope was elegant, feminine, and unmistakably intimate. Clara. She unfolded one letter, then another. Words of longing, of nights spent together, of promises whispered in secrecy, but buried within them was something darker. Mentions of money transferred to hidden accounts, debts Daniel had never spoken of, and cryptic references to the risks we must take. Emily's hands trembled as the truth widened before her. This was not a single betrayal. This was a life built on deceit, a marriage woven from shadows. Every vow, every tender moment replayed in her memory now felt staged, a curtain drawn to hide the rot beneath. Her knees buckled. She fell to the carpet, clutching the letters to her chest as if they burned. Tears streaked down her cheeks, blurring the ink as she whispered, "All these years." Nothing was real. She staggered to the fireplace, fed by a sudden fury. One by one, the letters curled into flame, turning to ash. The smoke filled her lungs, bitter and suffocating. The fire consumed the paper, but not the truth. That still lived inside her, demanding a decision. And the dawn was coming, whether she was ready or not. The letters were gone, but the truth clung to Emily like smoke that refused to leave her lungs. When Daniel returned that evening, the house was darker than usual, only the faint glow of the fireplace illuminating her face. She sat in the armchair, waiting, the silence heavy enough to crush the air. He slipped off his coat, raising an eyebrow. "You look pale. What's wrong now?" Her voice was low, steady. "No more lies. I know about Clara, the accounts. The debt's everything." For the first time, his expression faltered. Then slowly the mask peeled away. His smile was thin, humorless. "So you finally found out." Emily's stomach tightened. There was no plea, no denial, only the cold certainty of a man who felt no shame. "How long?" she whispered. Daniel poured himself a drink before answering. "Since the beginning." "You were convenient, Emily, safe. She was the fire, you were the shelter. I needed both." Her breath caught, fury and grief twisting together, but she did not move. The man standing before her was no longer her husband. He was a stranger she had lived beside, a hollow shell carved from deceit. "You've destroyed everything," she said, her voice trembling. "No," Daniel replied, sipping his drink. "I simply gave you the life you wanted to believe in. The lie was yours as much as mine." The words struck harder than any blow, yet in that moment Emily felt something shift. The weight broke. The silence around her no longer suffocated. It liberated. She rose without another word, walked to the bedroom and packed a single suitcase. By dawn, the bed was empty on one side, its sheets cold. As the first light bled through the fog, Emily stepped onto the road, suitcase in hand. The marriage was dead, but she was still alive, and that, she realized, was enough.